Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, My Path to Preservation with David Judson of Judson Studios. My name is Lisa Versace, and I'm the Program and Engagement Manager here at the California Preservation Foundation. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization providing statewide leadership, advocacy, and education to ensure the protection of California's diverse cultural heritage and its historic places. Our work is supported by the incredibly generous support of our members, donors, and sponsors who make free programs such as this possible. And special thanks are also due to our annual education sponsor, Janney Elstner Associates, as well as today's program sponsor, Groundwork Preservation LLC. We're joined today by guest speaker David Judson, president and owner of Judson Studios, the oldest family-run stained glass studio in America. David will be further introduced by today's moderator, Gretchen Hilliard-Boyce. Gretchen is a historian and preservation planner with over 20 years of experience working in the public and private sectors. In addition to being the founder of Groundwork Preservation, a cultural resources consulting practice, Gretchen is a member of CPF's Board of Trustees, as well as Vice President of Programs. Just a quick little bit of housekeeping. If you have questions for David during the program, please don't hesitate to ask them using the Q&A button up at the bottom of your screen. And Gretchen, I will hand it over to you to get today's program started.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. I am very happy today to get to introduce David to all of you. David is a fifth generation leader of the Judson Studios, where he has overseen hundreds of national and international projects since 1996. Under his leadership, the studio has expanded its artistic and technical capabilities, guiding work at the intersection of art, craft, and historic preservation. He is a past president of the Stained Glass Association of America and recently published a visually rich book on the studio's 125-year history. So with that, David, I'll let you go ahead and present to us, and then we'll have a Q&A after.
Great. Thank you, Gretchen. Yeah, thank you, Gretchen. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, CPF, for having me today. I'm a big believer in what you guys do, and CPF is one of the great organizations, preservation organizations, and very happy that they're so active. And I am excited to speak with you all today. So I'm going to give you just a very brief kind of history of myself and how I got involved with the company. And then I have a few projects that I want to share with you that kind of show a little bit about the type of projects that we're running into and some of the kind of issues that we run into on larger projects that contemporary preservation, I think, challenges us with. And so I've been doing this now since about, 30 years. I started in 96. Being fifth generation, it was something that as a child I was very interested in. And then kind of in my high school, college years, that was the last thing I wanted to do. So I kind of went on my own, went off to school. I was originally interested in politics and poli-sci, and then I ended up moving abroad and studying in Madrid, and ended up living there for 3 years, finishing my degree in Spanish literature and art, and then ended up coming back and doing a master's degree in international relations. And I was really interested in kind of going the State Department route and that kind of thing. But I think as I gotten kind of involved and I worked with a large international organization in Madrid, the more I realized I was not interested in a very large organization, and I was not comfortable coming from a small family business and doing that. I missed the creative community. I missed seeing kind of things done physically. Like I really enjoy being involved with seeing things that physically take shape. For us at Judson, that's both new work and a lot of restoration preservation work. And so although my education is very different, I felt like it really did kind of prepare me for coming back to the studio with just a totally different lens that I would have had if I had just kind of stayed close to home. And so that for me, it was kind of very beneficial in a roundabout way that I did not necessarily expect or plan on when I first started. And one of the big challenges, I think, when I came and got involved with the studio was noticing that, most of our artisans were retirement age and kind of Eastern European retirement age folks. And I thought, gosh, this is not sustainable. There's no way that we can continue to run this business unless we find some younger people and really kind of see how to attract people to what we do. And so one of the first things I did was I started an art gallery, and that was at our studio where we did. I hired a curator to help me, and we did a lot of exhibitions to attract people that otherwise would not have known who Judson was. And so my goal with that gallery was to hear people say, "Oh, I didn't know this place existed," or "I'd never been here before," and that kind of thing. And so that was really kind of my foray in was to look at how we can kind of draw people in a roundabout way, as opposed to kind of a direct marketing. I think I find that events and kind of collaborations and these things are much better ways of kind of connecting with people and kind of getting a feel for what's going on in the field. And so I ran the gallery for a number of years, and then kind of became more and more involved with the studio. And then my father kind of passed away suddenly, and then that was it. I was in it. I was the only one left in my family who was involved with the company. And so from that point forward, I've been involved and kind of directly involved with the company and with the industry. And so for several years, I got involved with the Stained Glass Association of America, which is one of kind of the main stained glass association in the United States, and has long history. Started in the early 1900s, and I ended up becoming its president and trying to address the challenges that we face in the industry. And so that was kind of a very rewarding experience. And now I'm not as involved in as much. I think it's one of those things where you pass the baton and kind of move out of the way. Um, so that's a little bit of our history. Our studio started in 1897, and like I say, I'm fifth generation. So the company was originally founded by my great great grandfather, who was a plein air painter, and came to the Los Angeles area basically for health reasons in 1893. And so he trained his sons in stained glass, and that's where the stained glass comes in. And so we've been kind of operating in Southern California ever since. So I do want to kind of go through a few slides. I have three different projects that I wanted to share with you, just to kind of show you some of the work we've been doing in the last 8 to 10 years. Some of them we're still working on, and let me see if I can share.
Oh, David, it's showing your two-slide presentation again.
Okay, let me see if I can change that.
Looks good.
Okay,
Mhm.
great. Okay, so like I said, I have three different kind of preservation projects that I wanted to kind of share with you. And let me see if I can advance my slide here. Sorry, I'm having trouble navigating here. Hmm. Okay. You guys still see my screen?
Yeah, I'm just still seeing the opening slide. There we go. Now it's changed.
Okay, there
I
we
think
go.
it's just very slow. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Back in 2018, we were invited to bid on the restoration preservation of the Unity Temple in Oak Park. And we've been involved with Frank Lloyd Wright restorations both here at both the Ennis and Hollyhock houses, and so we were invited to bid on this project. And the windows here had been kind of gone through several years of bad restorations, and so the decision was made to just completely restore the windows, meaning to replace the zinc cane. So Frank Lloyd Wright used zinc rather than lead, which is common in most the matrix of most stained glass windows. And he liked the zinc because of very stiff metal, but zinc also breaks down and can uh, you know, break down over time and needs to be replaced. So we sent our team, our crew, you can see on the left-hand side there, kind of on site, pulling everything out of the house, and then all the crates showing up at our building. So that was a kind of a logistical issue at one point of getting all of the panels to our studio in Los Angeles. There's stained glass around as well as ley lights. There's two major ley lights, one in the primary kind of sanctuary, and then one in the school that is next door, and all those came out. And what we found is that there was a lot of bad repairs over time. So a lot of the glass had been replaced if it had broken. And so we had to do a complete survey of all the glass. We had to find one of our vendors to actually replicate some of the colors. So we spent a lot of time trying to figure out which glass was non-original and spend time figuring out which glass could be replaced. And it took quite a while to get that glass kind of reproduced. Um, like I said, all of the zinc had been pulled because of bad repairs over the years and completely re-zinced. And so all of this zinc you can see here kind of replacing and soldering with extremely like the trick with zinc is that it's a very tricky metal to work with. And so we had to really work on how the details of soldering, and Frank Lloyd Wright kind of had very different elements of how he worked with that material. And then we have a cementing process. So if you're not familiar with the process, we do a kind of a sealant. So this is the kind of the last step once the glass is taken apart, cleaned, glazed, and then we do a cementing process, which is basically filling any gap between the zinc in this case and the glass to seal it and to waterproof it, and it stiffens the panels and it patinas it. You can see using the black material that we use. And with clear glass, that's extremely difficult to get them clean. So we spent hours and hours of cleaning the glass. Here they're using what we call sticks, basically rubbing a stick along the edge of the zinc and the glass to get it extremely clean, which is a very meticulous process. We also recreated all the lamps. So a lot of the glass could be reused. A lot of it had to be reproduced. And all the lamps were replaced in the facility as well. And these are some of the after shots. And they did an amazing job with the colors and the finishes. And, there was a lot of eyes on this project, a lot of people that we had to kind of report to and work with to get to a place where everyone was happy with everything that was going on. And I love this is just kind of a glamour shot of the night. This is the Air Force Academy Chapel in Colorado Springs, and we started in 2021. And this building's going under a complete renovation. It's been totally de-skinned, and they're redoing all of the metal. My grandfather, interestingly, did the glass originally in 1960 for this building. So it was really exciting to be able to work on this. But the problem was that it leaked from day one. So somehow the finger got pointed at my grandfather, and luckily he had done water testing and he had done everything that he was asked to do. All of the documentation was really well done. So I went through the files, very thick files of correspondence of a lot of finger pointing going on at the very early stages of this project being completed of where the leaks were coming from. And ultimately, what they found was that a secondary gutter system on the interior had been value engineered out. And so the building just leaked. Even when we went into 2021, there was leakage in the building. And so what we were asked to do is to go in and this is what it looks like at night. It's a really amazing building. If you haven't been, if you're ever in Colorado, it's worth a trip. It's the most visited building in Colorado. And there's these kind of strip of what we call faceted glass, which is a little bit different. It's not your typical leaded glass. It's glass that's about almost 3/4 of an inch thick. And this often set with either concrete or an epoxy matrix. In this case, they were set in aluminum cassettes. And so all of these cassettes came out. There was about 2,300 of them and over almost 30,000 pieces of glass that we had to address. But the glass was in fairly good shape. Here you can see the building just before. You can see them constructing on the left-hand side there. They had to encase the entire building because it's at the base of a mountain where there's just really strong winds, and there was no way to work on the building without it being covered. And so they built this massive cube, and it's still in this cube. And the scaffolding was amazing. If you can imagine, over almost 120 feet high of scaffold. And so we had to go in and document everything. And so we were climbing, we were one of the first ones in numbering and labeling all of the panels and documenting the condition. So here you can see our label in the bottom right-hand corner. And the amazing thing was that the beauty of this is that the numbering system we still had in our files. So we were able to use the original numbering system to identify all of the panels. It was a huge help. And so we used the original system, and then the documentation you can see here where we distinguish kind of a single crack versus multiple breaks. And it was decided in the process that none of this would be replaced, so we would just repair the pieces. So everything got pulled out, documented in-house. So you can see the years, because of the leakage, there was about every 5 to 10 years, they were putting new sealants on. So all that black that you see, even the top 3 pieces are covered in sealants. And so there was basically a lot of cleaning to do. And that's really all we had to do to these panels, is clean them. And we had to do it in a containment environment, because once the project had gotten started, there was some asbestos testing, and they found asbestos in certain areas. So we had to create a containment area to then clean off all of the sealants. And that just to wrap up on Air Force, we just last week did the first phase of reinstallation of those panels, and we will be finishing the installation this year. We were supposed to finish it next year, but apparently there was a letter from the very top of the administration that wanted it done this year. So everybody's kind of hopping to get that done, and so are scrambling to get all of those panels in by the end of the year. This is a dome that we worked on a couple of years ago, the Missouri State Capitol. Really beautiful window. It's about, skylight dome. It's about 25 by 25 feet square. And it's very design oriented. I think I have a little video of, this is the building. You can see that the dome kind of sits underneath the cupola there on the side in the front there. There you can see our scaffold up to the window above a stairwell. So the kind of working conditions were really amazing, and the window had panels that were over 12 feet in size, which is completely not acceptable in today's terms. So we convinced them when we rebuilt it to break up the panels. But the other important thing about this project was the support system. So you can kind of see the shadows of the bars that sat on top of these panels. And we worked closely with them to reevaluate how those bars were attached to the panels. And we actually moved them underneath the window. So the windows weren't carrying the weight of all these steel support. And that was a huge kind of process that we worked with them on. There you can see the steel. And what had happened is that over the years, as the kind of dome began to sag, they went in and just attached bars. So you can see those two-pronged kind of elements with the washer kind of on them, and they just drilled it through the glass. And so it was kind of a worst case scenario of trying to fix it. There you can see. So they just drilled these in to through the panels and attached the steel with this kind of these fasteners, and it really damaged a lot of the glass. And you can see how kind of big and invasive it is to the design. And so we really work with them on trying to figure that out. And they had a three-dimensional kind of model made with some cameras, and so we were able to kind of see where the sagging was happening. And you can see just lightly there's one area there on the left-hand side, just to the left of the circle, where we think that somebody probably put their foot through a panel at some point, crawling on the top. Otherwise, you can see kind of minor deflection in between all of the steel structures. And here's kind of a heat map of it. There you see that red spot where the worst damage was. The green is pretty much in plane of where it should be, and the yellow is where we're seeing a little bit more deflection. And so this was really helpful for us as we kind of assessed how to kind of recreate the structure. Each panel, like I said, came out, was completely taken apart and cleaned. And here you can see kind of a before and after. And it's really amazing. Like you can see the little parrot in the middle there next to a snake, and some of these details that we had not seen otherwise from the ground. It was really amazing to see. And the other kind of interesting thing about this project was the way the leads were cut and formed, and so that required a lot of work. Here you can see breaks around the bird where the glass we didn't want to replace, but we could just use copper foil to repair cracks. And so there was a lot of broken glass, like I said, from the structural system that was added. And even if you look at the leads in the flowers there of the white, it's really kind of amazing, the detail. And that's it, reinstalled. So that's it. I went through those kind of quickly, and hopefully, if you have some questions or anything, I'm happy to address those. Let me see if I can stop sharing here. Lost.
Thanks, David.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I feel like the thing that comes up to me is like legacy. Like you have the legacy of your family's company, and then you have the legacy of these like amazing projects that you're working on that, where the stained glass itself is such a critical part of the design. And that's how does that
Yeah.
feel?
Well,
Do
yeah,
you
I
feel
think
pressure from that?
yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where you're taking on somebody's work that, has been such a kind of contribution to the space, and trying to do them justice. And, the amazing thing too about working on a project like this is how much you learn from seeing what those craftspeople did, a century or so ago. And it's really amazing to be able to bring those in and get a close look up at them, not only for artistically, but just how they were constructed. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really, really enjoy it. It's very rewarding.
Mhm. Yeah, I would imagine. All right, we've got some good technical questions for you here. So, Paul, asking, how do you actually clean the antique glass, like for the Frank Lloyd Wright project that you were talking about? It was hard to clean. Like, what are you actually doing?
So generally, and it depends on the scenario, but Generally, glass is pulled out of the matrix, and there's the cement that I showed you. That cement that gets printed. So there's years of cement around the edges underneath where the glass was captured by the came on the edges, and that glass we can use various, whether it's a blade, sometimes a brush, stiff brush. We often wet them down. It depends, for dust and safety reasons. And it also helps soften the material that might be on the edges. Sometimes we use Orvis, which is a very mild kind of detergent they actually use to clean horses. If we do need something to help soften the material that's on the edges, that helps us soften that material to remove it. When you get into painting, so if there's painting on the surface of the glass, it's a much different kind of scenario because paint is basically a vitreous paint that's painted on the surface of the glass and fired in, and that has to be handled a little bit more kind of carefully because the paint can be unstable, and so that requires a little bit of a softer hand, and we can't apply as much kind of water, moisture, those kind of things to those types of pieces. So, but basically, it's just manual. It's like something that we have to do by hand with blades and brushes and cloths, and keep it intact.
All right, thank you. Okay, next question from Hank is who goes with you and or the project manager to assess and evaluate to fix cleaning who's involved in the process?
Gretchen, will you re-ask that one time and maybe turn off your video? You're starting
Oh
to,
yeah,
we're
sorry.
starting to lose you a little to the
Yeah, I'm
snow.
starting to break up. It's snowing here, so let me try again. So, who goes with you and or the project manager to assess and evaluate a window or you just have to replace it?
Um, so if I heard you correctly, you're saying who goes with us to evaluate the decisions about how to handle the glass, like how
Correct.
to repair it?
Correct.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
yeah, that's a great question, and it really depends on the project. So some of these larger projects, there's generally a architectural preservationist on staff, or has been hired, not on staff, but has been hired to kind of uh, consult on that. Um, some projects, like to this scale, a stained glass conservator has been hired as a consultant, and that conservator has specs that we're required to follow. So a lot of times we'll get a list of specifications about how to handle particular repairs. So generally, for example, first attempt at a broken piece of glass is to glue it with an adhesive, and that adhesive is specified generally in those specs. It can be like a Spectrum product, generally for kind of a gluing or epoxying. If that does not work, then we use the copper foil, which you saw some of the copper foil repairs where that allows us to grab the edge with copper foil and make a much thinner line than a traditional lead line. And then lastly, if the piece is completely, irreparable, then a replacement has to be. We'd have to find a glass, have that submitted. We'd submit samples, and that glass would be approved by the conservator and the owner and those folks.
Okay, thank you. I love all these technical questions. Here's a question. Hank was just asking like what other professionals you work most closely with, and I know you've mentioned a few like conservators, architects, but are there others involved that maybe you haven't touched on? Other professionals? Seems like it's a whole team of people that you need.
Well, yeah, and our team, really we're running into, and around a lot of people that are working on finishes, stone, the framers a lot, whether it's steel or wood or, kind of depends on what the frame issue is. And that often is somebody we have to collaborate with. And we don't do that in-house, but we have relationships of people that we work with on those kind of things. Um, but yeah, a lot of times, for example, All Saints Pasadena, we had to work with some stone folks who were helping with some of the areas around where, for example, the steel frames are engaged with the stone, and sometimes just for water issues, we need to kind of capture that as well. So we can only kind of seal the window and the perimeter of the window, but sometimes that engagement of the steel with the stone setting or whatever setting it's involved with, we have to work closely with those people and assess, kind of how that's addressed. And so it's quite a bit. I mean, there's quite a few people that we're running into on those, and a lot of times it's working with the contractor who's kind of overseeing that we're perhaps subbed by, and those contractors then are, depending on the project, a certain amount of involvement, whether just trying to figure out where that line is about who's doing what when you get into it, and but a lot of times we try to stay focused primarily just on the glass and not on some of the other aspects that we run into.
Mhm. All right. Next question is, and I might modify this slightly. So Vicky's asking, are you finding many new commissions, or is stained glass becoming a lost art that limits new projects? So you've talked a lot about your restoration and preservation projects. Do you do new commissions also?
Yes. And yeah, we're actually I would say our work varies between, say, a half to a third of restoration, preservation. So we are primarily doing new work, which is rare. I have to say, and part of that's just being on the West Coast. So a lot of my colleagues on the East Coast are almost like their studios, especially the legacy studios, are, 95% restoration. And so one of the things that was interesting to me was to do new work. And so when I got started in the early 90s, mid 90s, I saw a lot of American artists going to Europe, primarily Germany, to get their work done. And so I thought, gosh, we need to do something to correct that. And so, being in Los Angeles and being known as a more traditional studio, we really wanted to do something that was kind of contemporary. And so we started, we ran into a project in Kansas in 2018 that we were competing with a German studio working with an American artist. And the commission was for a church that had a window that was basically the size of a basketball court. So it was like, 3,400 square feet. It was massive. And so we created a design, and again, we could tell the committee was split between kind of a more traditional approach versus a contemporary one, and so that really worked in our favor because we could come from a traditional kind of standpoint, but also create a very contemporary design within that. And so what that led us to do was to start fusing glass. And I didn't include that here, because I wanted to focus on the preservation, but fusing glass is something that we're kind of the only major studio, I'd say, in the world who's fusing glass, which is basically taking colored glass and what we call frit, which is ground up glass. We can cut sheet glass and frit and mix those and put them in a kiln, and they will remain stable over time. So traditional colored glass, because of the mineral oxides that create the colors, will not remain stable. If you put them in a kiln and fuse them together, they will not remain stable over time, and they'll eventually crack either immediately or after a period of time. But we work with a vendor called Bullseye Glass. They're out of Portland, Oregon, and all of their glasses are compatible, all of their colors. And so we felt that was something that we could embrace and kind of compete with contemporary projects against the kind of the German and European firms. And so it's been amazing because what a lot of those firms do is they're kind of using painted enamels, for example, or they're laminating colored glass just onto float glass. And the beautiful thing about fusing is that you're using the material of glass to get the effect. And so that's kind of been our foray into contemporary glass. And my push has really been to collaborate with fine artists, primarily painters, in commissioning um, stained glass for public art or commercial areas. So what we're seeing is that, for example, we're working on bus stops in Seattle right now, and that's kind of one of our largest commissions. And we're working with a local artist here in LA and an artist from Seattle to create these stained glass windows for the kind of like you can almost call them transoms of the bus
Hmm.
stops. And so that's kind of an example of kind of where contemporary stained glass is going. And we're also working on a monastery in Wyoming. So they wanted super traditional kind of style windows. And that is our largest project at the moment. And so that's a project we've been working on for 5 years. We probably have another 3 or 4 years to work on it. And so there's this huge kind of range of work, whether it's religious or secular work that we're seeing. Designers are starting to come back to glass, and we're seeing a little bit of a resurgence in the sense that I think people love seeing things that are handmade, right? There's something about the spaces that we're working in. We're seeing the value of that right now, being in such a digital world, and now with AI, it's like there's something to be said for looking at natural light come through a natural material and create an effect in a space that I think is having a bit of a moment. And so, we also see like color is, acceptable again, right? I mean, it's like color was
Hmm.
like had died there for a while, and architects are still probably our hardest nut to crack. But I think designers and owners and developers are seeing kind of the value of what art glass can add to their spaces. And so that was one of my big pushes too, is that we can't rely on the religious market, that we really needed to expand and the value or the kind of the kind of amazing nature of stained glass is not only for religious spaces, right? It's something to be said that in the environments that we're in now, colored glass really can be a powerful element, and it doesn't have to be a huge thing. Just a little bit can really make a difference. So
Hmm. I have a related question then. So mentioned it's kind of when you started, it was sort of like hard to find the artisans to do the work. And now today, are you training people or like how are you finding qualified people to do the work?
yeah, that's a great question. And they kind of find us, I have to admit. And part of that is that I try to create an environment that's a rewarding place to work, right? And so but that being said, I think again, there's a little bit of this idea of the younger generation kind of loving working with their hands. There's something very interesting about kind of being able to make something and build something. And so, a lot of times people, there's not really a school per se. I mean, there is a conservation program out of York, England. But in terms of like kind of a formal education, there really isn't one. And in Europe, they actually have kind of an apprentice, a formal apprentice program that's kind of government run. And so studios get credit for hiring apprentices and that kind of thing. And because they have the apprentices have to book a certain number of hours and that kind of thing. That doesn't exist in the United States. And so generally what we find is that, and we do have a much younger staff now than when we started. So I'd say, at least half of our people are under, say, 40. And so some of our folks have been with us for 20, 30 years. And so some people come with varying levels of skill. Some have like not worked in stained glass at all, but they are very dexterous, I guess you could say, and very good at working with the hands and want to work with their
Hmm.
hands and maybe working from another trade. And so we can bring them in, and we kind of have an unofficial apprentice program that we have. It's kind of like a pecking order, so to speak, and so you kind of come in and work your way through all of the stages of stained glass and kind of bit by bit, kind of move into different stages. And some people like different things. So some people like to cut glass, some people like to glaze. And so that's kind of how we are trying to slot people in and kind of get a feel for where they want to be. And a lot of that sometimes is good if they don't know a lot because we don't have to untrain them. And sometimes they come in with very good skills and they fit right in, right? And so it's kind of a balance. And in terms of the creative side, we have, I think, four artists that we are kind of full time, and they're either designing or painting. And they're from art schools. So one's from Art Center, one's from UCLA, one's from Parsons. And so those artists are kind of coming with a more formal education. And most of our artisans are coming from either another studio or some other trade generally. Some of them come in. I have one guy who's been with us since he was, 18, and his father worked for us. And yeah, it's just kind of a funny thing. It's one of those things that if you don't have patience, you're not going to make it. And if you don't have the passion for it, you're not going to make it. So those are kind of the
Mhm.
two lessons. But it's very rewarding and working as a team because it's a very collaborative environment is really important too.
That's great to hear. You don't often hear that side of the story when it comes to artisans and craftsmanship in our field, at least, because it's like in some trades it's disappearing, but it sounds like because of the nature of your work and the decisions you've made and the focus on exhibition and I don't know, it just seems like it's well-rounded enough that it's bringing people in a way that maybe other fields are not. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, and when it's very different. So like the SGA, the Stained Glass Association of America is really changing, right? In the sense of like that was originally created in the early 20th century to fight tariffs uh,
Hmm.
uh, on imports from Europe primarily, right? Because so many churches were importing their stained glass from Europe. And so the association was really, and so a lot of the old studios like ours would have been involved with that. And now we're seeing a much smaller people, either one, two, three people studios kind of wanting to get involved. And so it's just a different dynamic. And part of that's just, you know, the business side of it is it's just very hard to operate a large studio with the overhead versus one or two or three people that can be much more flexible and maneuverable.
Hmm. Okay. Okay, we have a couple of questions about your Missouri project. Ron wants to know how the structural elements on that project.
So I talked a little bit about the structure, and it was, basically the last step of making a stained glass window is attaching steel bars, reinforcing bars. And generally on a vertical window, they'll run horizontally um, to then engage with the frame. So that way you're distributing the weight of the panel to the frame through these horizontal members that are engaging with the frame. So you're trying to redistribute the weight. With a dome, it's a little trickier because you're dealing with gravity, right? Straight down. So rather than we've seen various scenarios like this where, for example, we did the Olympic domes at the Olympic Club in San Francisco, and those had a secondary seismic structure that we had to attach the bars with cables and tie them up. In Missouri, we went a little bit of a different route where we because there were so many bars and it was so hot up there, and lead obviously gets soft with heat, is that we thought, well, let's move the structure underneath the glass rather than sitting on top of the glass, which was just increasing. We're asking the stained glass to do something that it shouldn't be doing, and that's carrying the weight of the structure. And the way that it was engaged with the primary steel, what I'm talking about is a secondary steel structure that the secondary, if we could move the secondary underneath it and attach it to the primary steel that way, then it's sitting on this web of steel as opposed to the web of steel sitting on the stained glass. And so there was a lot of concern about kind of aesthetically what that would look like. And what we were telling them is like, look, you have this 1 inch piece of steel. It's basically 1 inch by an eighth of an inch sitting on top of the panel that's creating a shadow. And so you're getting almost a larger effect by having it sitting on top. Whereas underneath, even though it feels like you're going to be looking at all this steel, it has less of an impact because you don't have the light issue to deal with. And they didn't believe me. And so we had to set up a mock-up. So we put up two panels, one with the steel on top and one with the steel on the bottom. And we met with them in the Capitol, and they couldn't tell the difference. And so that kind of helped us seal the deal of like, okay, this will allow us to relieve the weight on these panels and really allow that structure to do its thing from underneath. So I hope that answers the question. I don't know if that was
Yeah, I think so.
okay.
A follow-up question on that was for that project, did you re-lead all of the panels as well?
Yes. Yeah. Every panel was completely taken apart. It took us about 2 years. And so what we do is, and I wasn't super clear on this, is that we had to build molds to work on these panels. And so what we do is we created the molds on site and then shipped the panels on these molds that we could then use in the studio when we were taking them apart and putting them back together. And so what we do is we put the panels down, we take a rubbing of them, and we rub the leads to get basically a working drawing to work from. The first one we do is on a archival paper. All the annotations are made. Again, this is all in the specs. We have to do an archival copy with colored pencils, no kind of like inks. We have to have archival ink that on all those archival rubbings. And then we make copies of those rubbings that then become our working drawings. And so those annotated rubbings become the actual, I guess you would say, full-size cartoon or drawing that we reglaze the cleaned glass onto. And so basically the annotations are noting breaks in the glass, anything that needs to be addressed in terms of the actual glass, lead sizes. Obviously they're photographed and documented very closely as well, so we can kind of see how the details of how the leads come together. So a lot of the joints are specific to the art, and those have to be replicated. So those are really important details that we gather kind of in the initial phases when those panels come in to when they're done. And so that one photo that I showed you of the before and after, that was a completely re-leaded panel to kind of show you the difference. 100 years makes.
Thanks for explaining that. Yeah, that's really interesting because you don't think about the level of documentation that has to happen before you ever like take it apart, touch it.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like a super important step.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Okay. Next question is actually about the Oak Park, the Frank Lloyd Wright project. Michael's wondering if you can share any details on the challenging approvals process you mentioned.
Approvals. Well, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, I would say.
Mhm.
There's, the owners and the stained glass consultant and the contractor and the architectural preservationists. And so there was a lot of people that had to get their eyes on things. And so, we got a lot of different feedback and a lot of ideas. And a lot of that was just trying to get them all on the same page about how the project was going to continue. And that was a scenario where initially the when the bid went out, the proposal went out was not to re-lead, but to try to work with the zinc, try to work with the existing zinc. And I think what we realize is that once you start pulling those out, it's first of all, it's hard to kind of know which windows had been, worked on and which ones were going to be able to remain stable over time. There was a lot of bad repairs that, we realized that if we did not just do a completely recaming of the panels, that there would be a lot of inconsistencies, and you would also probably be back in, a 10 to 20 year time period to, work on those panels that may not have been addressed. And so I think that we felt that it was almost easier to go ahead and re-zinc all of those. Until we found out once we signed, once we were selected and got our contract, we found out our zinc supplier went out of business. And so
Oh no.
that
That'll
created some
change it.
challenges. Yeah, so that changed the timeline a little bit, but we eventually got another supplier online, and they actually bought the equipment of the company that went out of business, which probably made the zinc originally for Frank Lloyd Wright out of Chicago,
Oh
and
wow.
yeah, so but anyway, yeah, it was really important to step by step. They came out to Los Angeles. We had various site visits to the studio by the team to review a lot of the glass that we had reproduced. The profiles of cames had to be addressed, and yeah, there was a lot of sign-offs in a lot of different stages and steps. But most of that was done either with we would gather up enough samples for them to come and review in the studio, or at a little bit later in the project, we were sending samples to them. So, but the trick was that we had to make 3 or 4 samples. I can't remember how many samples to send to everybody, so everybody could get their eyes on them. And remaking the glass was extremely challenging. Luckily, Bullseye ended up making it for us, and they have a chemist on staff that was able to match the glass. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was really fun.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, switching gears a little bit, Brigitte is asking, she's an interior architecture student wanting to pivot into preservation, asking, what's the best way to get into this field as a total newbie local to Los Angeles? Any specific workshops or training resources you might recommend?
Well, join CPF if you haven't. And I think those kind of organizations are the best thing to do. And I think you kind of find the one kind of element of the preservation process that you love and you want to be involved with. And so I would say that reach out to professionals, attend conferences. I think conferences is the best way to kind of talk to professionals, and that's really intimidating and hard to do because you feel like everybody knows each other and everybody has all this experience, and why would they want to talk to you? But I think if you can kind of get past that, then I think you'll find that those are the best places to really get a sense of the profession and what people are doing and the challenges they face, and building relationships. You meet people that way, and I think that's sometimes the best way to do it is to really kind of survey the different elements that you see in the preservation field and decide which one kind of really drives you, and you see yourself doing day in and day out, because it is a passion profession. It's not a Wall Street job.
I think you've done tours of Judson Studios before. Do you do those regularly? Like if someone's in the LA area and just wants to see your space and what it's like to work in a place like that?
Yeah, we do monthly tours. We had stopped for
Hmm.
quite a while after during COVID and after COVID, and I think we've been back online for maybe a couple years now. So there's a lot of pent-up demand. They sell out really quickly, and we're kind of sold out towards the end of the year. So I think but if you're an aspiring kind of professional and you want to just email me or call me, I'm happy to walk you through and talk to you and kind of show you through the studio, and you don't have to wait to try and get on a public tour. So
Hmm.
I'm happy to kind of talk to you about that and kind of show you our space. But yeah, I think we have tours through September, but I think they're sold out. So you can
Oh, wow.
keep an eye on that if you want.
Maybe we'll have to do another CPF tour sometime
Yeah,
because I'm sure there's
absolutely.
plenty of people that would want to go. Yeah.
Yeah, we did do that a
All
few
right.
years ago, didn't we?
Yeah. All right. I have one more question here from Ernie, which is a one to end on, which is, do you have any personal family heirlooms produced by the previous 4 generations?
Oh gosh. I guess I would say yes. There's quite a few
Hmm.
windows that floating around the shop that have been, generations, and we move them through the shop at different places, and we have a storage area where we keep a lot of panels like that. I do have a number of my grandfather's paintings, so that's a little bit different. But my great grandfather was pretty prolific as a painter, and so I do have some of his paintings in our house, and that's kind of inspiring because he captured areas of Southern California that are don't look like they used to, right? So, um,
Mhm.
but yeah, in terms of stained glass, there's quite a bit around the studio that we kind of keep, and obviously we have an archive of almost 100 years of designs, and so those it's kind of fun to go through those occasionally and get a sense of what those look like. So yeah, I mean it's one of those things where being in a building for over 100 years, you have to be careful about what's in it because it can stack up pretty quickly. So we're
Is it the same location, the original location?
well, we moved into the studio that we're in now in 1920. So
Oh,
the company
wow.
started in 1897 in downtown. So we were in downtown LA until 1920. And the building that we're in now was built in 1900. It was originally the School of Fine Arts and Architecture for USC. And
Yeah.
so it was the School of Fine Arts and in that location until 1920 when they moved down to the main campus where they are now. And then Judson moved into the studio. So we've been in there since 1920.
Oh, that's really neat.
Yeah.
That's like just legacy all around.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
it's not
gosh,
the most productive place, but yeah, it's definitely very inspiring.
I love that. Well, gosh, thank you so much, David. This was really interesting. And I know I personally want to come see you sometime. So hopefully we can get a tour together sometime in the future for folks on this call and other CPF members. But thank you for your time. I think Lisa's going to close us out. And thanks everyone for attending today.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree, David. I will connect with you about possibly doing a tour in the future. I think that'd be a lot of fun, and I know I will come down from the Bay Area specifically to join that tour. A huge thank you to David for joining us today. I know I certainly learned a lot about your business, as well as the field, and I hope that everyone on the call did today as well. To our audience, we're really glad you joined us today. We hope you found this program insightful. Hope you learned something, maybe got inspired to change your career or get into the field of stained glass. We've got lots of more programs on the horizon that you might be interested in. Please check them out, californiapreservation.org/programs. I'll drop a link into the chat. While you're there, consider joining CPF. Membership is free for students. We'll give you a complimentary 2-year membership. You can also find that link on our website, or I will drop it into the chat. Regular individual membership starts at just $50 a month, or while you're on our website, please consider donating to keep free programs like this available to everyone. Huge thank you again to David on behalf of Gretchen, myself, and our education committee. And we look forward to seeing everyone again in the very near future. Bye-bye.